I never talked about Letterboxd on here before? Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today's video is going to be something a little different. Don't worry though, there's still going to be plenty of reviews and rankographies and lists and all of my usual video types to come. But today, I wanted to do a bit of a recap of sorts by going over my 2021 Letterboxd Year in Review. I've realized that you guys watching these videos only get a very limited sampling of the movies I watch each year, and I thought people might be interested in a more comprehensive look at my year in film. I also love looking at stats, so it's a fun video for me to make too. I know a lot of you already have Letterboxd, or are at least aware of it, but for those of you who aren't, Letterboxd is a website that allows you to keep track of the movies that you watch. There are a ton of features, like the ability to rate and review films, to organize movies in lists or with tags, to follow your friends' movie activity and interact with the broader film community. And then there's just lots of movie information to dig your teeth into. Different ways to sort and filter and organize the movies you've seen, the ones you haven't seen, the ones you want to see. The vast majority of these features are available with a free account, but the year in review I'm going to be going through in this video is a pro feature, so it does cost about $20 to unlock. Now, I joined Letterboxd back in 2014 and have pretty obsessively used it since then. I watch at least one movie every day, so Letterboxd is just part of my daily routine at this point. I've been playing with ideas of how to incorporate Letterboxd into my YouTube videos, but I do want to give credit for this year in review video idea to my friend and fellow YouTuber, Cineflect. He's done videos like this since 2019, and he also puts together a lot of other really interesting and well done movie related videos. I've got a link to his channel down in the description, so be sure to check out his videos and subscribe to his channel. Alright, so let's dive into these stats. At the top of the page, we get an overview of sorts for the year. So you can see here that I watched 662 movies last year. Just a couple more than I did videos for. That 662 isn't restricted to just movies released in 2021, so it includes literally everything I watched last year, including rewatches. Moving on, I wrote 112 reviews and created 25 lists. The next two numbers here reflect my social activity on the site. So I liked 13 things during the year, films, lists, other people's reviews, and I left 11 comments on reviews or lists. The last number here is the number of hours I spent watching movies last year. This is a bit underestimated since it doesn't take into account extended cuts or the plethora of special features I watch, but 1,136.5 hours comes out to nearly 47.5 days of movie watching. Moving down the stats page, we hit the films by week section. This histogram gives an interesting temporal overview of the year, including any spikes and dips in the number of movies I watched in a given week. A couple sections of note. Late January and early February were pretty high because I was catching up on award screeners. Week 14 saw a bit of a spike because that was the week I watched all of the Oscar-nominated short films. And week 37 here was my most prolific week with 26 films, because that was right in the middle of my coverage of the Toronto International Film Festival. Like I mentioned before, I watch at least one movie per day, so the lowest weeks on the graph have 7 films, with the exception of goofy little week 53 here, which was literally just December 31st. Next, we get a nice monthly and weekly average to really showcase my insanity, and then another histogram breaking down all of my watched movies by day of the week. There's not really a huge difference among the days here, but there is a bit of a spike during the weekend, since I wasn't working, and then during the work week, Thursdays show a bit of a spike too, likely due to the fact that I tend to see new releases at their Thursday night preview screenings. Moving along, we've got the Milestones section. So the first film I watched on January 1st was The Great Escape, and that was actually my first time watching it all the way through. I've seen bits and pieces over the years, but I was visiting home over Christmas, and so me and my dad sat down to watch my Criterion Blu-ray on New Year's Day. The next section here is from my most watched movies during the year. I don't obsessively rewatch films throughout the year, so you can see my max was twice for a movie. I had a few more twice watched films, but it just shows your 5 most recent. Some of these I watched for review, and others I watched twice just because I happened to catch them on TV. My last film of the year was The Godfather Coda, The Death of Michael Corleone, on December 31st. I was once again home for the holidays, so me and my dad rewatched the Godfather trilogy, and then we watched Coda for the first time, which is basically a re-edited version of The Godfather Part 3, and I think it improves on the original cut a bit. Next, we've got genres, countries, and languages. As usual, US dramas in English were by far the leader here. Lots of movies are tagged as dramas, so it kind of gets an unfair advantage, but comedies and thrillers weren't really that far behind. In terms of countries, the UK was second on the list, which is always the case for me, with some of my other typical countries rounding out the top 10. And for language, French, Spanish, and Italian all had relatively decent numbers, with things tapering off by the end of the top 10. Moving on, we reach what Letterboxd calls the breakdown section. So this begins with a series of pie charts, the first of which showing the number of 2021 releases versus older films. I'm still working on 2021 catch-up, so this number would already be different if it included films watched this year, but last year only about 15% of the movies that I watched were new releases, with 85% being films from 2020 or earlier. The second chart shows my number of first-time watches versus rewatches, and includes movies released in any year. At almost 68%, first-time watches reigned supreme this year, with only about a third of my movies being rewatches. And the third pie chart here looks at my reviewing percentages. This chart more closely mirrors the first one, and you can see I reviewed about 17% of the films I watched this year. So, the remaining 83% were either just watched for fun, or if they were a rewatch, I had likely previously reviewed them during the year I first logged them on Letterboxd. The bottom half of the breakdown section has two more interesting pieces of information. The first is a histogram showing my rating spread for the year. As usual, 3 stars, or pause, was my most frequently given rating, with 233 different films this year. That said, things were certainly skewed a little higher than normal for me, with a whopping 27% of films getting 3.5 paws. At the extremes, I only gave one film half a paw, and that was my first watch of 2019's Cats. And on the other end of the rating spectrum, all of my 5-paw ratings were given to rewatches of old favorites. In fact, if you're looking for my highest rated first time watch this year, you'd have to go to 4.5 paws to find Last Night in Soho. The third segment of the breakdown section highlights my watch list, which is a feature on the site that lets you keep track of movies you're interested in watching. So you can see I watched 85 movies from my watch list, which is pretty good. But I went ahead and added 128 movies, so I ended the year with an even bigger watch list deficit than I began with. And that's a common trend for me that I imagine will forever continue. Next up is the stars section, which allows you to toggle between most watched and highest rated. Highest rated can be fun, but it's very easily skewed when you've only seen 2 movies, so I never put much stock in it and instead find the most watched much more interesting because it really tells the story of your year, and especially of any franchises you might have watched. Interestingly enough, Jacques Tati took the #1 spot for me this year because I finally watched my Tati Criterion set. So I was able to watch his 6 films and then all of the shorts he starred in as well. Eddie Murphy came in second thanks to a film series and a few pairs of sequels, and I'm sure you can guess that I watched a couple Fast and Furious movies as well as some Harry Potter and Halloween. Moving on, we've got the directors section, which functions just like the stars section.
Once again, highest rated can be fun to look at, but it's way too easily skewed, so I always stick with most watched. Again, thanks to the Criterion Tati set, Jacques Tati is my #1 director this year, followed closely by Alfred Hitchcock, who always tends to be near the top of the list for me. As with the stars section, franchises really impacted this list. Fast and Furious for Justin Lin, The Thin Man for W.S. Van Dyke, The Godfather for Francis Ford Coppola, Back to the Future for Robert Zemeckis, the Dollars trilogy for Sergio Leone, and so on. I will say, though, that it's always nice to see some black and white photos in this section. Next is the crew and studio section. Again, there's a toggle for highest rated and most watched, but by now you know which one I find more useful. I'm not going to spend too much time on this section this year, but if you're interested, feel free to peruse my stats page or pause this video for a closer look. Moving on, we've got the highs and lows section. So, of the films I watched in 2021, Parasite has the highest average Letterboxd rating at 4.6 stars, while Cats has the lowest at 1.4 stars. Parasite is also the most popular film on the platform, whereas the most obscure film that I watched doesn't even have a poster on the website. But if you're interested, it was a 1957 short film called Sportsman at Work that I caught after a film I watched on TCM. I am one of only 24 people to have logged this short on Letterboxd during any year. The next section just shows a visual representation of all the films I watched in 2021 in reverse chronological order. So, kinda just a wall of posters, which you can expand if you're interested. Finally, the last section is the world map, which shows the country of production for all the movies I watched in 2021. As we saw in the earlier section of the stats page, the US solidly holds the #1 spot for me. But even though the numbers may be low for other countries, at least my movies were relatively diverse this year. African cinema always tends to be a bit of a blind spot for me each year, but I did manage to get a few new countries compared to previous years, like Ethiopia, Senegal, and the Ivory Coast.
Alright, so there you have it, my 2021 Letterboxd Year in Review. I put a link to the stats page in the description below, so be sure to check it out if you want to dive deeper into any of the sections. And of course, don't forget to give me a follow while you're over there so you can keep tabs on my movie watching throughout the year. So, do you have a Letterboxd account? What does your 2021 Year in Review look like? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. YouTube has a tendency to automatically delete or hide comments with links, so you might be better off just including your Letterboxd handle rather than trying to directly link to your profile. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this year in review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this, as well as movie reviews. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.